Okay, so today's talk is about packaging, and today's talk is about plastic versus paper packaging. So we are a paper manufacturing company, and from the perspective of a paper manufacturing company, I try to, look a little bit into the myths and the truths of fiber-based packaging, sustainability, performance, etc. So, this is actually one of our customers. And I call her, she's a confused and concerned consumer. Because that's currently actually, most of our customers kind of look like that. They are confused. They don't know, is plastic bad? Is paper sustainable? Can I reach the performance with paper for my packaging? Is it recyclable? Whatever. And those consumers, of course, they inform themselves in the internet and they are confronted with a lot of controversial arguments. So, can I pack chocolate in paper? Is it sustainable or whatever? We had a very famous brand owner who recently switched back from a paper straw to a plastic straw. We have the packaging and packaging waste regulation that is currently, more confusing than clarifying the future requirements, and so on and so on. So the only thing I can tell you is there is no magic ingredient to sustainable packaging. There is no silver bullet solution I can offer to you. We don't have the holy grail for sustainable packaging, but we work towards sustainable packaging. So how we do that? Basically, most consumers ask the question when they compare plastic against paper. They usually compare performance against sustainability. We all know composite packaging is not sustainable, but it's performing very well since years. We all know paper is very sustainable, but is it enough from a barrier perspective, from a performance perspective, that paper can pack my goods? So paper, definitely when it comes to sustainability. We all know that paper has a very extensive recycling stream already. 80% of papers are currently recycled in Europe. So it's a good basis to have a sustainable solution. If you throw your paper into the environment and it lands somewhere on the beach or whatever, it usually decomposes very quickly, whereas plastic takes hundreds of years, and that's the reason why we see those polluted beaches everywhere. We know that paper uses a very sustainable material, cellulose. Cellulose is actually one of the most abundant biopolymer in the earth. And if you compare the carbon footprint, usually paper has a pretty good value. On the other hand side, paper boo, if it comes to performance. Everybody's looking for water vapor barriers and oxygen barriers below 1. We are not there. You can see that everything that's blue in here is predominantly served by polymers. And there is no immediate solutions for that blue area here that we could change into a paper packaging. But there's a lot of room here. This is what you see in green. There's a lot of room where we can already replace plastic packaging with paper. So are we actually talking only about a material transition? I would say no, we talk about a technology transformation. Because what happened is that back in the 50s, actually paper packaging was predominantly used for everything. And then when, polymer and artificial materials came up, the 50s, everything was changed to polymer solutions. Also the machines actually have been changed to polymer materials. So currently, in the 2020s, we are in a region where we're trying to get back into another technology. So and I'm not saying it's paper, I'm saying it has to be a sustainable solution. Sustainable solution means you are not only obliged to look at the polymer, at the material itself, but you have to look at the whole value chain. You have to look at the total cost of this material in the packaging value chain. That's the most important stuff actually, and that's hard work for us to argue. So let's come to the big myths of paper, because that's the arguments that we, conventionally hear when we discuss about paper packaging. So the guys would say, well, if everything would change from plastic to paper, we have no woods anymore. You would deforest the whole world, yeah? I will not argue now with you against it or for it. I would just like to show you the typical arguments that we hear. The loss of biodiversity, of course. If you cut down all the woods and you only have monocultures in the end, there is no room for biodiversity anymore. Since we are combining actually paper with very thin plastic liners and layers, there is still microplastic there. So if you throw it in the environment, you will still have microplastic in the environment. Well, I can tell you it's not true actually, but I don't want to argue with you here. They say paper production has a very bad carbon footprint. You need a lot of energy to produce paper, to de-water the paper. You need a lot of water actually to produce paper. And you are not able to reach the barriers, so at the end, there is more food waste than with plastic packaging. I can tell you that there is, for every section here, there is an argument for it, but we also have an argument against it. And the future will show which one is right. So what are we doing until we have clarification about all those issues? I have to confess, we still use plastic coatings. According to all definitions that are out there, according to REACH, according to Single-Use Plastics Directive, we use chemically modified polymers. We use polymer as a main structural element, so we use polymer. The thing is that our polymer content is minimized to the maximum. So we only apply as much polymer as it is required for the application. That means what we do is we basically start with a paper, a standard paper, and as you know, paper is a very fragile material. It's a biomaterial, so it is not sealed against water vapor. It is not sealed against oxygen. So what we do is we apply very thin coatings on top of it, and they help us to reach the barriers that our customers are requiring. Let me quickly talk about wicked problems. I believe sustainable packaging is a wicked problem. You know what a wicked problem is? A wicked problem is something big. It's something unique. Plastic waste is definitely a big problem. That's the reason why here we're talking about a wicked problem. The whole topic is very complex. Believe me, if you look at the regulative side of these barrier papers, if you look at the packaging and packaging waste regulation, you will observe that this topic is very complex. It's also very difficult to define, because with every customer we talk, we hear different requirements. So if you talk to a food supplier, you hear, of course, completely different requirements than you talk to a pet food supplier or a baby food supplier. So that means there is no one fits all solution with paper. We need to, really customize every paper to the requirements of our customers. There is no end. Nobody can tell you that, hey guys, now it's enough, you have done enough. There is no end, because the end is if we have 100% sustainable solution. And this takes a long time actually. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And so on. We have very costly solutions. We have a lot of stakeholders that are discussing with us: packaging suppliers, converters, printers, brand owners, retailers, etc., etc. and so on and so on. So how do we try to solve this wicked problem? Please imagine that this is a product development process. Okay, so at the end you have like your fussy front end, very complex. You have to define your solutions, and here at the end you have your solution. So how are we trying to approach those wicked problems? So first of all, at the front end, we have to work together with partners. It's impossible to find the solution on your own. So do co-creation and open up your innovation pipeline. Look into other industries, look into other segments, because maybe they have developed solutions that also work for your application. That's what we do a lot. Then we use design thinking in our product development process, meaning that we really look at the user of our papers. So we look at the customer. You know, we look at the production manager in the packaging line, how he's looking at the paper when he's replacing his OPP roll with our paper roll. Is he happy with it? Or is he just, expecting a lot of troubles because he changed over? So it's really about the user. Design thinking is a great method to work with that. Everything we do is based on science. That's very important. Peter Drucker actually once said, you can only manage what you can measure. We believe in that. Everything we do creates a measurement result. We use the principles of lean startup. Means we do a lot of prototyping. So we are not, developing theoretically a paper. We're trying to build the paper quickly to give our user a solution that he can already work with. He can already do first shelf life tests. He can already do first drop tests. He can already do first recyclability tests. Rapid prototyping is an essential part of our product development process. But overall, of course, we have a structured stage gate process. So we really go very structured from a sheet to a final reel. And that's a lot of work. And at the end, of course, our consumers, they need to have a feasible, desirable, viable, and sustainable solution. So that means we look for the right customers that is open to discuss the requirements with us. You would immediately recognize that if a customer that you supply a paper to would say, no, you're not allowed to go into my production area. If this happens, you better stop the cooperation with this customer. So this customer really needs to be open and needs to think like you, co-creative. In other words, for us it means that what we do always follow how we do it, and this always follows why we do it. I think the why is pretty clear. We want to get rid of plastic waste. How we do it? We're trying to work very agile and very open. And what we do barrier papers, which is a combination of a paper and a very thin polymeric layer. So now, the big question. Is fiber-based packaging already reaching this tipping point, I mean, I'm here now the second day on our booth over there, and I was at Fachpack the last 3 years, always as a visitor. And what I can feel is that fiber-based packaging is picking up. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can feel that more and more guys are seriously asking questions. What is able? What can you do with fiber-based packaging? So, I think you know the tipping points for climate change, huh? You know that if the Greenland ice shield is melting, then there is no way back. Then we have to face a temperature increase of 2 degrees. There are a lot of these tipping points for our climate. I tell you, there are also some tipping points for fiber-based packaging. For me, it's definitely a clear regulative directive that tells us what to develop. That's still missing. We have a glimpse of what is expected, but still our targets are ambiguous. So please, dear European Union, give us implementation guidelines quickly, because we need to know what to develop. Then we need to have those global brands switching to fiber-based packaging. You know, there are always these first movers, these tech guys. They are curious about paper packaging since 5 years already. But the big brands need to change. If one of those big brands, and we saw a couple of them in the last month, is changing, this might, cause this snowball effect for fiber-based packaging. Recycling technologies, still under development, still not there. But if we get a breakthrough in packaging and recycling technologies, this is one of these tipping points. So, and what else I would like to mention here is this one, supply security. This brings me to a very important point. I think in this fair there are, let's say, 10 to 15 companies who are promoting fiber-based packaging. Yes, they are in competition with us. But I really give a big applause to every of our competitors if they could convince a brand owner to switch, even if it's not our solution, even if it's only their solution. But I'm celebrating every success of my competitor, because I know it helps us as well to jump into fiber-based packaging. That's what those big brands are looking for. They will never switch if there is only one supplier that is able to supply. They need a second source. They need a third source. So please, let's work together to make fiber-based packaging successful. Because what currently happens is, I don't know if you know this book from James Clear. My colleague Johannes, he actually recommended it to me, and I love this graph. It's about the straight line you can see here is basically what everybody would expect from fiber-based packaging. In fact, the results that we develop are not following this straight line. They are actually following this green line. The only thing I cannot tell you is where we are currently. Are we already short before this breakthrough, or are we, I don't know, far away from this breakthrough? The problem is that your CEOs, they would tell you, well, now you developed fiber-based packaging for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you still have not reached the result that I was expecting, so you better stop. Please do not be patient. This takes time. This is a transition process. So maybe you are right before this breakthrough. Don't give up. And the second is what I told you before, is that we have already convinced the first movers. They are already on board for fiber-based packaging, but still we need this early majority, these big brands switching 1,000 tons per year into fiber-based packaging. And all of those solutions, by the way, those solutions you can see there are not ours. They are all from the internet and they are all from our competitors, but they all help us to cross that chasm and move into a mass market. And that's what we all need, a mass market. So I vote for a common value proposition. As a fiber-based packaging player, we all need to work on a common value proposition and not argue in different directions all the time. So, at the end, some examples that you can also see at our booth over there. We have already developed a portfolio of barrier papers that work for a couple of different applications. It already works, of course, for non-food items. It already works for some dry foods. It already gives sufficient barriers for chocolate. You can pack ice cream with it already. I think our competitor Sappi is showing an ice cream packaging. Go there, buy, take an ice cream, try it, it works. Chocolate, we have chocolates there, it works. So you can already pack. It's just a matter of, convincement. So please have a look at the samples. You will be definitely enthusiastic about fiber-based packaging. But we're not only looking into what comes in the next years. We try to look also, a little bit far into the future. So we have already a demonstrator realized that basically shows a printed sensor on the packaging. So what you could do with that sensor is you could basically measure the moisture content and the temperature inside your package just by using an NFC technology or an ultra high frequency technology. I believe that in 5 to 10 years we will see a couple of those applications. Very important, we work together with a partner called CAM Solution. CAM has developed a water-soluble, compostable film. And if you marry this water-soluble, compostable film with our paper, you suddenly get a material that's transparent, you get a material that's recyclable, compostable, and it works for air pillows, and it works for transparent packaging, and it will work for many other solutions. So my colleague Nanda, who is already preparing for the next speech over there, she will give you an insight into that solutions from CAM. My conclusion is, so Henry Ford, I like this saying, because if I had asked, you know this saying probably, or if I had asked the people what they would need, they would have said faster horses. So at some point in time, we need to be, we need to be courageous to try it, to try fiber-based packaging. I promise you, it will work. It might take some time, but it will work. So we need to combine what already works. For us, less plastic is also a solution. It doesn't necessarily need to be no plastic. Less plastic is a solution. We need prototypists, so we need the guys who build packaging, who try chocolate shelf life tests, who try user tests, etc., etc. I call them prototypists. It's a very nice word for, really enthusiastic guys about fiber packaging. As I said, we need a common, sustainable value proposition. And finally, as I said, please, European Union, give us clear implementation guidelines so that we know what to develop in future. Thank you.